Here from Academi Southwest is Brian Allendorf to talk about TCCC, Tactical Combat Casualty Care.
But first,
PRMI Mortgage.
Oh, I'm sorry. Don't mind me.
This is like watching like a horrible tennis match. It's really just back and forth, nobody hitting the ball.
Well, hey, I seen a picture of me and my salt.
Well, then, by all means.
PrimeRes.com/Alpine. Are you in the military looking for help for a VA loan? Or if you're looking to buy or refi, or if you're just considering a reverse mortgage, call our local mortgage guy that you can trust. Call Chris Wiley at PRMI Mortgage. For nearly 25 years, Chris has been helping local San Diegans with all their mortgage needs. Give Chris a call at 619-722-1303 or go to primeres.com/Alpine. And by the way, I'm getting flies in the air now, so I don't want to hear nothing out of you.
Nice.
all right, Brian, are you there?
Yes, sir. How are you?
Okay, I'm great. Welcome to the circuit. The show.
Hey. Hey, Brian, do you have a salt gun?
No, I do not.
You got to get one, dude. You can take a fly out like nobody's business.
Yeah, air shots are hard.
Air shots are hard. I'm getting good at that, but they're great.
So, Brian, you're going to talk to us about Tactical Combat Casualty Care. So, what is that for people that don't know?
So there's a couple different versions. So you're talking about Tactical Casualty Combat Care. Comes in there's a whole bunch of different courses with it. Tactical Casualty Combat Care, TC3, as most people refer to it, is a really good class for military, law enforcement, federal agents, my first responders, my firefighters, paramedics. Then there's another version of it, kind of the same curriculum, different scenarios of TECC, so Tactical Emergency Casualty Care. That's really good for our gun owners that are listening.
So, and that's what I was going to ask you. So that you're offering a class that's more geared toward the civilian end of that?
We do, and it's really based around the scenarios because they're going to be a little different than what my military, federal agents, stuff like that are going to encounter, most likely.
So what can you tell us about the class then? What does that encompass in terms of, like the theory part, the hands-on part? What are you guys teaching?
Yeah, so the hands-on, the way we do it, we try to do about 90% hands-on, minimal PowerPoint because people don't like them. So it's mainly hands-on. In the TC3, it'll get into, we'll get into suturing, we'll get into wound control, we'll get into tourniquets, how to stop gunshot wounds, we'll get into doing a crike, right, an emergency airway, we'll do needle decompressions. We'll do some more pretty advanced medical care than what the TECC will, but TECC will cover a lot of the same topics as well.
And so what, people that are coming in, for the class, what do they need to know? Or is it appropriate for, people with no background at all in first aid or EMS stuff?
Yeah, that's one of the big misnomers, right? Just because someone's in the military and law enforcement doesn't mean they have a good medical background. You could come in, really all we ask for is you have a good attitude, and you're going to walk away with a ton of knowledge.
And because and this is the thing you're teaching too it's a national program, is that right? Because I was looking, I was kind of researching it a little bit earlier, and it looks like a lot of it was put together from what we've learned in the field, I guess, over the last 20 years with the combat stuff, and then maybe adjusted a little bit for EMS people at home, and then for civilians.
Correct. So it's our certifications are through NAEMT. So anybody who's a paramedic knows that site too, or an EMT. But yeah, what happens, and the reason it's so current is they're constantly updating their curriculum based on what's happening overseas. And I have a couple active duty members on staff, so I get that information as fast as anybody because they'll come back from a deployment and then they go, "We got a whole bunch of new stuff to show you." And the curriculum's constantly changing, constantly evolving. And I think that's important so we don't get cut into this is how we've always done it, because there's always a better way to do something.
Yeah, and I was looking at the kind of the curriculum, or at least an outline of it a little bit earlier, and it looked like they cover quite a bit because, I had my EMT cert for like 25 years, and, every 2 years I had to go back through the recertification, and it looked real similar to what we did. It was a combat trauma kind of thing, but there was a lot on there of with medical emergencies and just a lot of the good basic stuff, in addition to the trauma stuff on there. So it looked like a pretty good program.
Yeah, it's very in-depth. There's a lot of information. TC3 is a 3-day course. We have had some clients that requested a 5-day custom and 8-day custom because there's so much information that can be put out. We kind of tailor it to the client. We also have an off-road racing team in town that we're doing a TECC for them because they do like Baja races and stuff like that. So we can even tailor the training to your specific needs if that's what you need.
I thought you were saying that Academi had an off-road racing team that you guys were sponsoring or something. I'm down for that. How do we do that?
I wish. I wish. I don't give out client names, but we do have a professional off-road racing team in town, and that we're training their crew for like Baja races and stuff, and that's pretty cool too. So it's not only military and law enforcement; it's applicable every day.
So Brian, what does if you were to break down your 3-day course that you're teaching? What's that look like? Like, describe a little bit about day 1 and then day 2 and then day 3. What would a student expect?
Yeah, so breaking it down, day 1's going to be the nuts and bolts of the information. So we're going to cover terminology so you can speak intelligently, some basic anatomy. We're going to break down a lot of that stuff. The basic stuff of bleeding control will probably happen on day 1, maybe some splinting depending on what you need. Day 2 is going to be more hands-on, so we'll get into suturing. If you need to stitch somebody up, we've done mobile blood banks, get into advanced tourniquets, a lot of movement, so how to move your patient, especially in a combat environment or for our law enforcement in a active shooter environment, get to move people. So we get into movement, and then kind of day 3, we bring it all together with scenarios. So we'll actually have role players come in, and we'll have different emergency scenarios for them to have to figure out.
So, Brian, the TECC class, that would be good for just basic gun owners or shooters, correct?
I think TECC is good for your average gun owner, absolutely. Just because I live in San Marcos and I drive all the way down to the border, and there's so many accidents, right? And I wonder how many people drive by and don't stop. I probably stop for an accident at least once every 2 months.
Wow.
It's fairly frequent, right? But TECC is perfect for your gun owner, your concealed carry person, someone who just owns a gun, even if you don't have a CCW. In fact, it's good for really anybody to have some medical knowledge.
So, and Brian, do you guys go through and talk about like a kit? What's a good kit to have? What should be in it for, say, in the car or different things like that?
Sure. Yeah, we get into it, and a lot of it depends on, you get into legalities, because in TC3, for military members, for instance, they might be able to push certain medications because they can in the military under military care, but as a civilian, you can't. So we get into what you should have, what you can legally have, so you don't violate any kind of rules or laws. But yeah, we'll get into a basic kits for everybody. So everyone's a little different. Some people might want basic tourniquet is what I consider minimum, but I want gloves and CPR masks and the whole 9 yards with mine.
Hey, Brian, what's an example of something you might carry that, would put you in the category of being illegal?
Medications.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of medications that you're able to have in a military kit because you're not falling under any kind of – it's different in a combat zone of what they'll allow you to do. That's life over limb. It's happening right now. But in a civilian world, even if I know how to administer a medicine and I did it, I could be sued for it. So I don't mess around with medicines at all in a civilian loadout.
We know it's interesting that you guys. I think it's great that you guys go over the legal aspects of it too, because usually as a civilian, you're protected by the Good Samaritan rules. But once you have training, like we used to talk about that as EMTs, you can't go beyond your level of training. You can't do anything that's beyond, even if maybe how to do things like that. And that kind of stuff's not always obvious. So it's great that you go through and talk about those sorts of things, because I knew EMTs that would say they intentionally would not stop because of the legal liability and the lawsuits and things like that.
Yeah, my wife's a physician, and she won't for that reason because, she's not covered under that Good Samaritan law. She's covered under her license. So if something goes wrong or goes sideways, then she's up for a lawsuit. So your average civilian, we're much better off in that aspect. But then if it won't hold a court of law if I go, well, I learned how to administer certain medications in a type of medical class, because then under California law, I'm not allowed to do it. And that even changes with what EMTs and paramedics can do from state to state. EMTs here, I don't believe, can push medicine, but paramedics can push certain ones. In other states, that flexibility is much greater. So we kind of try to keep it in California-centric. That's where most of our clients are from. But, yeah, medicine is different medicines that you can give to people, that would be a real big red flag if something went wrong.
I think it's a really good point about the auto accidents, especially in Southern California. I've stopped for auto accidents before, and it's, one in particular years ago. It's jarring. It can be very, depending on, of course, the severity of the auto accident. But this one was severe. It is jarring, and it's especially jarring if you don't know what you're doing. But the idea of not knowing what you're doing when you could have known what you're doing and being able to save someone's life, that's a really important class. I think, the way we talk about first aid, it has to do with guns a lot because it's a gun show. And I work for a gun organization. We do a lot of gun training, but there's a lot of uses for this, and I thought that was a really, really good point.
Yeah, and, we got a lot of gun owners. Heaven forbid you have to use that thing. Now it's going to look much better in your court of law because we're going to go to court as a civilian if we have to use our weapon in self-defense, if we can administer first aid immediately after. After everything's said and done, we're good. Now we can administer first aid and maybe save that person's life or add more to it.
All right, Brian. Hey, thanks a million for calling in. Give your website out one time.
It's different. It's www.constellis.com.
All right, buddy. Have a good week.
Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio. You can watch us live every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, right here on our YouTube channel, or if you're in the San Diego area, you can listen to us on 1170 a.m. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform for free. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can help restore and protect the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.